a black hole. Now, there's no single factor or single person responsible for this mess, but there is absolutely no one who can defend the current system. The system that is in place is the result of decades of bad and costly decisions. And everyone, from the MTA staff, the contractors, and the hardworking men and women that perform this work, they're all frustrated. They're frustrated by the systems in place today, and they wish they had a more efficient system. They feel weighed down to that. In response to this, I was asked by Chairman Lota to serve as the chair of the board working group to reform the MTA's broken project delivery system. Now, we realized early on this isn't about just peeling back the onion, because there are far too many layers out there that need to be addressed. So instead of tinkering around the edges, we've begun to pull apart every stage of the capital project process. You know, some of our initial reforms we're exploring, some of our initial reforms that we're exploring include a couple of very obvious things. For example, for every project, create a project CEO, someone who is actually accountable for the success of that project and has the authority to make decisions real time on site. And if there's a disagreement, that goes to the chairman, so people know this person is in charge. Another simple one. We had these incredibly complex and unbalanced contracts. Rewrite our contracts. If you talk to our contractors that work for the MTA, they admittedly say they put a factor in of 20 to 25% of what their estimated costs are just to navigate the circumstances in the contract. So just doing that would have a meaningful change. Obviously, make more flexibility off-the-shelf components so that we're not customizing everything that we're building at the MTA. There's bonding that we require that is beyond market conditions that we can ultimately remove. And lastly, streamlining the change order process to provide quick approvals. Now, if we're going to make any real, meaningful progress, though, we must have organized labor at the table. You know, we have the most talented construction workforce in the world here in New York. However, the efficiency and the skill of this workforce is overwhelmed by archaic work rules. For example, it takes 10 workers to operate a tunnel boring machine in other countries. To operate the same machine here in New York City, it takes as many as 25 workers. Now, no one is saying that the hardworking men and women who build and maintain our infrastructure should be paid poorly or that their safety should be sacrificed. But organized labor must be a part of the solution to ensure that the public's money is spent in the way that yields the maximum bang for the buck. In addition to the Subway Action Plan, Fix New York City, congestion pricing, and changes to the MTA project delivery system, Chairman Lota has brought on the kind of change agents that the MTA needs to transition into a 21st century organization, such as Pat Foy, Jano Lieber, and Phil Lang. And of course, they also brought on a complete and total transit rock star to lead New York City Transit, Andy Byford. A transit veteran who has taken him across 3 continents over nearly 3 decades. Andy most recently served as the CEO of the Toronto Transit Commission before coming to lead New York City Transit. Andy, I think yesterday was just past his first 100 days on the job at the MTA, and he's already made a big mark. From implementing the Subway Action Plan to recently unveiling a bus action plan, Andy is putting a plan in place to transform our New York City subways and our bus system into the type of New York transit system that we deserve. It's now my pleasure to introduce our first speaker of the day, the rock star, with a great haircut and a great accent, as you'll see, Andy Byford. Andy.
Scott, you stole my joke. I was going to say I model myself on you in more ways than one. First up, good morning, everyone. I'd just like to point out, as the transit guy, we are running somewhat late on the program. That is nothing to do with New York City Transit, okay? So anyway, but look, first up, thank you, Scott. Thank you for that kind introduction. It certainly is going to be quite the challenge, as I will outline in my few remarks to you today. But ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, I'm truly honored to be asked to contribute to this year's RPA Assembly, not least looking at the magnitude, the gravity of the occasion, and also the quality of the guests that we've got here today, and also the panelists. Becoming the president of New York City Transit is without question the absolute pinnacle of my professional career, and I'm humbled as some kid from Plymouth in the UK to be given the opportunity to run one of the world's greatest transit systems and to live in a fabulous city that I first visited in 1994 on honeymoon. I've had a really wonderful welcome from New Yorkers. I'm starting to learn things. I'm learning to be more direct. I did a cab ride the other day with one of my operators, and I said to him, so, how do you find being a train operator? And he kind of looked puzzled at me, and he said, well, I applied for the job. And I said, okay, let's try that again. Do you like being a train operator? So I am trying to be more American in my approach, right? So forgive me if even in this speech, sometimes I use a few English ways of speaking. But anyway, so New York City Transit, I'm not starting from scratch here. I'm building on the great work of my predecessors, including, and I believe he's here today, the legendary Tom Prendergast. Is Tom here? I think he's coming later on. My task is daunting, but it is crystal clear. We need to deliver a comprehensive modernization of transit in this city in the shortest possible time frame. Its processes, its infrastructure, and the service that we provide. Now, I like a challenge, and that's why I came here, but God, the first few weeks, I think that the scale of this challenge are becoming apparent to me. It's undoubtedly the biggest, toughest challenge, the biggest, toughest job in transit right now. And it's clear to me that transit faces three converging problems, not unique to New York, but they're particularly acute in this city right here and right now. These being aging infrastructure, growing population and an aging demographic, and limited funding from conventional sources. Now, these were challenges that I faced as well as CEO of the TTC, the Toronto Transit Commission, and lessons I learned there can and will be applied here. But I would say that they are exponentially bigger in this great city. So turning to each in turn, first up, aging infrastructure. We have one of the oldest, most complex subway systems in the world. And in many ways, our subway system is truly a wonder of the modern age. It's a labyrinth of tunnels and stations without which New York City simply could not function. Thanks to the efforts of my wonderful 50,000 men and women of the Transit Authority, 50,000 colleagues, overall we carry around 7 million people a day, 5.7 million of whom use the subway. And one point I often make, and will continue to make, is actually, just looking at the subway, 5.7 million riders. Most of those riders have what I call forgettable journeys, in that if you said to someone, how was your trip in today? They probably couldn't remember, and that's a good thing, because most people still, in spite of all the problems that we face, most people actually get from A to B safely without problem. But it's true to say that too often, far too often, our infrastructure and other factors let us down. It's increasingly difficult to coax yet more life out of equipment that is up to, and in some cases more than 40 years past its design date. We keep the system safe, but breakdowns are an everyday occurrence in spite of the efforts of what I call my miracle workers on the trains, on the buses, in the cars, shops, and response teams. So adding to that first challenge is the fact that the system is serving more people than ever before. And notwithstanding recent softening of ridership, the system is cracking under the relentless pressure of increased usage throughout the traffic day, patronage that could never have been anticipated when this system was first constructed. So the bus network, and Scott alluded to it, the bus network too is feeling the pressure. Ridership is declining in no small part due to road congestion as our buses struggle to get through on ever more crowded streets, leading to a downward spiral of service and patronage if not addressed. And the makeup of our ridership is also changing. Like most Western societies, the US has an aging population, meaning that transit has to adapt to the changing needs of the people that it serves. When the subway was built, accessibility was not a consideration, meaning that that wonderful labyrinth of stations and tunnels is largely inaccessible to far too many people. And finally, and again not unique to New York, traditional sources of funding can no longer be relied upon to provide the fixes that are so desperately needed. We simply cannot afford to and continue to keep asking riders to pay more and more and more, especially before the quality of service has increased. You just can't do that. And the alternate traditional funding source, namely taxation, can only contribute so much. Faced with these challenges, and a public that rightly expects exponentially better transit, we need to deliver radical reform. Mere tweaks to the system will not do, and what we need is a top-to-bottom overhaul of every aspect of our operation. Again, our infrastructure, our processes, and our culture. So drawing on my experience in Toronto, where a 5-year modernization plan delivered record customer satisfaction, making progress on 5 mega construction projects, and the accolade of the APTA Outstanding Transit System of the Year for last year, New York City Transit requires similar focus, and that's exactly what it's going to get. As Scott said, it was actually yesterday marked 100 days for me since I took up post, and we are not wasting time in setting about the task. Earlier this week, we set out a comprehensive bus action plan to arrest that depressing downward trend in bus ridership and to deliver tangible, sustained improvements to get New Yorkers riding the buses again. That plan was well received, and we must now deliver on our promises. Working with NYPD, with legislatures, with groups such as the Bus Turnaround Coalition, and I see Tabitha down there, fabulous support from the Turnaround Coalition and other advocacy groups, and with colleagues at the DOT. We can and we will make this plan a reality. And I'd like to thank Polly Trottenberg, the DOT Commissioner, and advocacy groups again for their help and support in formulating our plan. Now, if people thought that bus plan was radical, and some people did, wait until we release the full corporate plan in just over 3 weeks. That plan will describe what needs to be done to deliver world-class transit system worthy of this great city. It will be bold, it will be wide-reaching, even controversial in its ambition, its contents being neither cheap, quick, nor easy to deliver, but it will provide stakeholders with a menu of options for what needs to be done. So when, Mr. Chairman, the RPA speaks about bold ideas, big ideas that can't wait, that's exactly where I'm coming from. That's exactly what you're going to get with this corporate plan. Our plan, critically, will cost out how to re-signal the subway in the shortest time frames, the biggest, most transformational task that faces us. It will itemize the other infrastructure challenges that need to be tackled. It will set out a path for the resurgence of our bus network, and it will map the way to full accessibility of our subway, a gargantuan task, but one that is long overdue. Ladies and gentlemen, again, this plan will be no mere tweak of what we currently do. It is a full-blown NYCT renaissance, a top-to-bottom modernization of every aspect of our operation. And people have said to me, and I've read this, people have said it's about time the MTA came clean with what is the real cost of modernizing transit in this city. Well, ladies and gentlemen, be careful what you wish for, because that's exactly what we're going to provide. Now, of course, producing a plan is one thing, delivering and funding it is quite another. The resignaling of our subway is a good place to start, and New Yorkers rightly cherish 24/7 service. It's what makes this great city the vibrant metropolis that we currently all enjoy. But something has to give if we are to expedite upgrading the 20 or so lines that are still held back by their conventional signaling with all of its inherent reliability and capacity constraints. We must find a way to exponentially speed up the installation of new signals and other key infrastructure. And that's where innovation comes in. The Governor's Genius Challenge back last summer threw up the intriguing prospect of a much faster path to re-signaling if the adoption of ultra-wideband technology proves to be a safe method of locating trains. But in parallel, without waiting for that to be proven, we are exploring already with potential suppliers a far quicker, if, I'll say it, more disruptive way of equipping tunnels on more than one line at once, and on completing each line within a much shorter time frame with reliability improvements and a system that works out of the box. An innovative approach must also be taken to make the system fully accessible. That's not a nice to have, it's the right thing to do. And I'd like to acknowledge my colleague and my board member, Veronica Vanderpool, for the great work, Veronica, that you're doing to support us on making our system accessible. Installing elevators in the midst of crowded real estate and between myriad utilities will be, again, neither easy nor cheap. But we must find a more cookie-cutter way to speed things up. And we must also, as I said earlier, innovate our bus network, reimagining the way routes are designed and the priority given to transit if we are to break out of that depressing ridership decline and make buses once again a great way to travel. And finally, we must get seriously innovative about how we pay for this plan, given the limited ability of traditional funding streams. I welcome the current conversations about alternate ways to do projects such as design build, and also the alternate ways to fund them, such as through congestion charging. And while generally I leave the way we fund the system to the politicians, I know one thing, and that is we need adequate, predictable, sustained funding if our modernization plan is to succeed. So my view, though, on congestion pricing, I'm bound to be asked, so I'll give you my view on congestion pricing. This is from someone who lived through the introduction of congestion pricing when it came in London. A lot of siren voices said it'll be a disaster, it's not going to work. Well, it did work, and it was remarkable to see the first few weeks of operation just how much clearer the streets were and how much more clearly the buses ran and other vehicles. So I've seen it done properly, and if we are to achieve the twin objectives of reduced congestion and increased revenue stream, predictable, lockboxed revenue stream, we must bite the bullet, and I think that is a good proposition. My other immediate, got to be done. My other immediate priority in this role, and one of the fourth of the four things I said would be a priority in coming into this job, relates to culture, employee engagement, and the power of people. No transit system can be world-class unless its people know about, understand, and share the vision of their company. Similarly, no modern transit system can command respect or expect success unless its workforce reflects the society it serves and unless every employee gets their chance to flourish. 5 years ago, when I took over as the CEO of the Toronto Transit Commission, there had never been a woman on the TTC executive ever since 1921. When I left Toronto, 6 women and 6 men on my exec had delivered the successes that I described earlier, all selected on merit, but all through a deliberate strategy of positive action and to change and enhance the way we did business. So I'm a big believer in that. And you will see some more of that happening here at New York City Transit. Sooner than you might think, actually. Watch this space. While my new team at NYCT is more diverse, the way we lead people will form a large part of our corporate plan, because it is through the efforts of the 50,000 wonderful men and women of NYCT that our plan will prevail. Ladies and gentlemen, to conclude, NYCT, New York City Transit, our wonderful transit system is at a crossroads. Do we continue down the slow path to decline? Do we limit our ambitions to just getting it back to just where it just about works reliably? Do we make do amend and just about hold the systems together? Or do we bite the bullet and transform it, giving this city the transit system that it deserves? Why shouldn't New York City have as good a transit system as London, as Paris, and as Tokyo? My view is it should and it must. So I know which of those options I vote for. I vote for full-on modernization sooner rather than later. And our plan, Mr. Chairman, out later this month will spell out just how that can be achieved. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
I told you, a rock star, right? A rock star. Thank you.
As Tom had mentioned, and we're going to do a little Q&A with Kate, and I believe she has some good questions. So, Kate?
Great, so we have a lot of good questions here from the audience. Thank you very much. So many RPA board members are actually members of these broken institutions we talk about. What is their role to addressing the transit crisis?
First, don't hold that against us that we're members of those. I think the key, and this is one of the I think benefits of being as part of the RPA and participating in these other organizations, is you have the benefit of the research and the analysis as to what's working and what's not working. And that really, like for me, when I sit on the MTA board, I regularly think back to what are the policies and why that the RPA are putting forward and what's consistent with that. And one of the keys things about the RPA you'll see is that it's prone on trying to make decisions that benefit the region for the long term, trying to be away and immune from the parochial politics of the moment or the 2 to 4 year election cycle that's out there. And so having the benefit of those insights while you're talking to your colleagues on boards or voting on issues, I think provides us with a longer term view as to getting us to the right answer for the region for the long term.
Andy, tell us in this intimate crowd of 1,000 people, how bad is it really at the MTA?
Well, we certainly have challenges ahead of us, and I think Scott highlighted very eloquently one of the main challenges, which is it is a big organization, it's a big bureaucracy, it has developed almost organically over the years, and so a lot of our processes are ponderous, and a lot of things take far too long, and we absolutely must bite the bullet on things like the waste that you rightly described. But having said that, I'm very encouraged by the quality of the people that work there. There are a lot of very passionate people at the MTA and in its agencies, its various agencies, certainly for New York City Transit. There's a lot of fabulous people who feel very badly, actually, who hate the fact that we have reached this nadir, that we're at the trough of our reputation, and that pains them. They're transit professionals. They're people that want to do a good job, and I think to a certain extent, desperate for strong leadership and a strong vision. And I think that's what Chairman Lota is giving us. With the new management team that we've got now in place, we are as one with our board on do nothing is not an option. We absolutely must pull together. We've got to deliver. If you give us funding, and that has to happen, if funding is forthcoming, then two things. We've got to spend it wisely, and we've got to deliver on our promises. So I think the ground ingredients there, the base ingredients, there is an absolute all-out determination to pull out of this trough. And certainly for a transit, I'm saying to my team, we absolutely can get back to number one. We're going to do it.
Yeah, I just want to reiterate one thing, because I think it's an important point. And I saw the same thing at the Port Authority and the MTA. The professionals and the people that are on the ground, they are so dedicated to their job, to the customer, to our region as a whole, and they're as frustrated as all of their customers. When they see their trains delayed or the bus routes they can't move at a regular speed, that's not a job they want to get up to do. So they're looking for change. But it's not going to be easy, because this is not only about changing systems and processes that I spoke about, it's also changing a culture. And one of the things that I think that Andy is doing very well is working on changing that culture, that enlisting all of those professionals as part of the team, as part of that energy for change versus one versus the other. And I think that's an critical element there.
Sure. Can I just add one thing to that? So one thing I passionately believe in, and my team are already beginning to sense a new way of operating, the days of top-down, militaristic, macho, male-dominated, my way or the highway, I'm the boss, you do it or else, that has to change. There's a bit of that going on, I definitely face that in Toronto. I will not walk past one of my colleagues on a station like the janitor or the station agent without stopping to say hello to them. And this is kind of sad, a bit of a revelation. So I want that to be the norm, and it's through the 50,000 people that we're going to turn this thing around. 100%. We're going to turn it around. Yeah.
Scott, what do you see the MTA's, the board's role in bringing about this change?
So, you know, interesting, because I have the benefit of sitting on the Port Authority board, where you had sort of the New York, New Jersey contingency, and having to navigate some of those different dynamics, which sometimes I said it was a little bit like watching Bulwark Empire and Scandal combined. And so as it relates to, compared to that, actually the MTA boards is a lot easier. We have a little bit of dynamic with New York City and the counties and New York State in that mix. But what I would say, particularly since I've joined, I guess now just under a year ago, I've seen Chairman Lota go out of his way to encourage transparency, discourse. I mean, for example, I mentioned the working groups, which I mentioned I'm handling the working group on the construction process, and Veronica, one of my colleagues on the board, she's handling a working group on accessibility, and we have, I think, 5 different working groups that the board's engaged on, that the chairman set up. I don't think in the history of the MTA have there been actual working groups where the board members are engaged in trying to solve some of these difficult problems. And I think that, you know, that's the type of cultural change that I was referring to, because we're all in this together, and rather than us sitting there pointing fingers, we're trying to find ways to move forward in a constructive and productive manner.
Andy, what are some of the regulations that cause the inefficiencies and uncontrollable costs of the MTA contracts? And have you already started in efforts to change those?
Yeah, so I think Scott covered a lot of that we, for various reasons, and invariably it's because of something that happened in the past. Maybe one contract went wrong, or some kind of irregularity was uncovered. Suddenly there's this massive overlay of audit and bureaucracy and additional regulations that gets applied to absolutely everything. So you do have to then navigate your way through pages and pages of processes to get the most simple thing done. The other thing that I, again, passionately believe in is we have overcomplicated things in the past. Say, for example, signaling systems. There's good reasons why, obviously, you have some idiosyncrasies in design because of New York subway is slightly different to others. But we must stop customizing things. We should use more off-the-shelf products, proven products, without customizing them. And we must minimize the interfaces, because where you have interfaces, particularly in signaling systems, that's way more complexity. It takes forever to get it right. Let's keep it simple, and let's use out-of-the-box proven technologies, because that's the only way we're going to do this thing more quickly.
Just going to add to that? I'm sorry, good. You're getting a lot of claps, by the way. I'm a little jealous here. I want to add to that, because, you know, one of the things I've noticed is that those layers of processes and sign-offs and regulatory elements, I think if you look at each one of those independently as a standalone policy or process, you would think, okay, that makes sense. But what's happened over the decades of the MTA is that each of those things that made sense singularly was added to the next, and so collectively it doesn't make sense. And when you ultimately are involved in these agencies, there's degrees of risk, right? How many times you need the general counsel's office to sign off on a procurement, or the CFO's office? And so the pendulum has swung way too far to the risk end, which, as I said before, is literally costing at the start 20%, 25% more than it should. And that's why I really do believe the way to have to solve this is you got to start from scratch and say, if you were going to do this today, if you were going to actually say, what's the contract, what's the appropriate balance between risk and providing the right alignment with your contractor, and put that forward, what would that be? Not try to reform what was, because you can't peel back all of those historical elements that were put in place to protect the MTA.
Yeah, very true.
I got one in the front row. Here we go.
Veronica doesn't count.
I wish I had that accent, too. If I had the accent, the claps, I'd be happy.
How have you both seen the ongoing feud between the governor and MTA, or governor and mayor, impact the MTA?
Ooh,
that's a tough question.
That's a
No,
tough
you didn't
one.
tell us you were going to ask that question.
I make sure. So, I mean, obviously, you know, it's it's a shame that we get distracted by these things. You know, it would be so powerful if everyone pulled together. But I avoid the politics. I'm not going to get drawn on the politics. My job as a professional civil servant is to migrate straight down the middle. And I'm used to dealing with unusual politics. I walked into the Rob Ford rest in peace regime in Toronto. So, you know, I have seen wacky politics elsewhere, but I know my job is very simple. People say, are you on the mayor's team or the governor's team? I'll tell you whose team I'm on, the customer's team, the rider's team, and that's where I'm
clapping?
So what are the organizations you're looking at for guidance in this reform process? Are there any good examples out there that you've seen?
Yes, I think, I mean, this gives me real encouragement, right? I remember not so long ago, the London Underground was in a mess. It came out of the disaster of the 1987 King's Cross fire, which was a watershed for the tube. In the early 90s, the system was unreliable, the trains were breaking down, the stations looked terrible, there wasn't enough line capacity. It was in a terrible, terrible mess. But that system now is transformed, and the way that was transformed was because it was given lockbox, I call it ring-fenced, guaranteed, sustainable, affordable, predictable funding. So if London can do it, we can do it. So that to me is a real lesson learned. There's lots of other good examples out there, but absolutely, this can be turned around.
Great, great.
And Kate, I'm going to cut you off because we've got to get this train schedule back on time here. So we're going to end this program.
Great.
But thank you all, Kate. Thank you. Andy, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Andy. Great, thank you.
No, I'm not doing it. You do it.
That was an incredible morning program. Thank you both, Scott and Andy and Kate, for moderating those questions, and all of you for participating. Now, to introduce our morning keynote speaker, I'm very pleased to ask to join the stage a longtime RPA board member, one of the co-chairs of our New Jersey committee, but of course you know him as the former governor of New Jersey, Jim Florio. Governor, thanks for being here. We'll introduce our next speaker.
Thank you, and good morning to everyone. I'm really very pleased to be able to introduce to you the new governor of New Jersey, Governor Phil Murphy. Our new governor is hard at work, very hard at work, attempting to restore a sense of optimism and opportunity to New Jersey, to reinvigorate the whole concept of transparency, collegiality, and civility back into the New Jersey political atmosphere. Most importantly, he is attempting to govern as he campaigned, with what I regard as progressive maturity. He's talking to people as adults, which is interesting and long overdue. Few people have the courage to campaign on the issue of the epidemic of gun violence by advocating forthrightly the need for more restrictions on the gun lobby. This governor campaigned on that and is in the process of doing it already. That's commendable and long overdue. Governor Murphy has really done some very smart but very fundamentally basic things. He's brought the common sense observation that nothing is for nothing to the people of New Jersey. He has said, and I think quite appropriately, that if we want to make higher education more affordable so that we can have the concept of upward mobility restored to our state, if we want to have preschool available to all of our young people so that they will get the benefits that are unquestionably associated with preschool, if we want to have a transit system that is, once again, as it was at one point, the envy of the entire country as opposed to what it is now, revenues will be needed. Nothing is for nothing, and you get what you pay for. He understands that and is conveying that to the people of our state. His belief that government is not inherently good or bad is something that makes a lot of sense. Government is a tool in the hands of people of good faith who bring about collaboration and civility, can achieve the public interest, and that ought to be the goal. So, ladies and gentlemen, it's my pleasure to present to you our Governor Murphy.
Good morning, everybody. I remember in church the parishioners used to respond to that, but Good morning. Let me begin by thanking the Regional Plan Association for the invitation to join you this morning, especially Chairman Scott Reckler and President Tom Wright, who invited me here today. Thank you guys very much for having me. It means a lot. I also must recognize the work of Rohit Agarwala, the chairman of the Committee on the 4th Regional Plan, which is an extraordinary plan. The fact that we're here today to talk about ways to build a stronger and fairer tomorrow for our region speaks volumes about the work of the RPA and the vision of the 4th Regional Plan. Governor Jim Florio, where'd you go, Governor? Right here. Thank you so much for your gracious introduction. Governor Florio has entered our history books as a principled leader who didn't shrink from making the tough and responsible decisions necessary to move New Jersey forward. He always knew that while we serve in the moment, we govern for the future. I'll choose just one quick example of this. It was his support for enacting New Jersey's tough ban on assault weapons, which still stands today because of his willingness to rally the people of New Jersey against both a hostile legislature and the gun lobby. Congratulations, Governor. I see, by the way, you're surrounded at your table down there. I'd be careful with your neighbors. Governor Florio's efforts to keep New Jerseyans safer from gun violence won him the 1993 Profile and Courage Award from the John F. Kennedy Library Foundation. And 25 years later, we see the wisdom of your actions, Governor. Again, Governor, I thank you for your leadership, your friendship, and your always welcome advice and counsel. And congratulations on the publication of your new book as well. This type of leadership, forward-looking and broad in scope, is the type of leadership I am working every day to try to provide for our state today. I believe it is the type of leadership Kevin Corbett, who is joining you as a panelist today, will provide at NJ Transit to get it back to the place where it once was again as a national model for efficient, safe, and reliable mass transit. On that note, I must also give a quick congratulations to my friend Tony Kosha, who is receiving this year's John Zuccotti Award. I don't need to get into his credentials, but on a personal level, Tony's insights on infrastructure especially have been invaluable, and this distinction, Tony, is richly deserved. Our region is stronger today because of his work at the Port Authority. The New York skyline of today is a testament to his vision. And now with Amtrak, he is continuing his service. And New Jersey is definitely better because of the decade he spent years ago as chairman of our Economic Development Authority. I'd like to think New Jersey gave him his start. I regret that I won't be here later to listen to Hillary Clinton, my dear friend and former boss at the State Department, when I served as the United States Ambassador to the Federal Republic of Germany. Finally, I must mention in absentia my colleagues in governing, Governors Andrew Cuomo and Dan Malloy. Certainly, we all want what's best for our individual states, but let there be no doubt we each recognize the tremendous importance of working together and ensuring that our entire neighborhood succeeds. Today is just day 102 of my administration. Not that we're counting, 1,363 to go, by the way. But already New Jersey is moving in a new direction, and we are positioned to play our part in this neighborhood success. For 8 years, we had allowed ourselves to be content with decisions made just to get us through the next day or to the next election, but without looking much beyond that. We had not only lost our way, we forgot where it was we were even going. This was absolutely antithetical to the core values that we hold so dearly in New Jersey. We had always prided ourselves on thinking big and acting bold. We put our focus on smart planning and maximizing our built-in assets like our location, our people, and our ingenuity. Everything we need flows from recreating that economy of opportunity. And we know we don't get New Jersey right until and unless we get that dynamic right. Now we are getting back once again to being a state which delivers value for our taxpayers by supporting and protecting their values. We have instituted a new mindset and culture. It is for this reason in particular that I'm so honored to be here this morning. In New Jersey, we recognize that we need to get back to providing the value from money that historically made us an attractive place to live and to do business. Yes, the Northeast and New Jersey will never be the least expensive places, but we deliver value by investing in the right things. Strong public schools, among the strongest in the United States of America. World-class colleges and universities. Walkable and exciting downtowns, affordable housing, and safe and reliable mass transit and infrastructure. The aspirations that we have for New Jersey and the aspirations you have set for our region align quite nicely. We are reinvesting in our public schools and taking the first step to making community college tuition-free for all residents, which is so critical to closing the skills gap. We are also nearly tripling, and I said yes, tripling, the state's investment and support of NJ Transit so that Kevin and his team will have the resources they need to restore commuter confidence in the network of buses and trains that connect cities both within New Jersey and which connect us so importantly right here to New York. Already, and again, we're not spiking the football, we have a long way to go, but already we are turning NJ Transit around for the better. First, our increased investment means there will be no fare hike for commuters at least until July of 2019, and I hope for a lot longer to come. We have also entered into a lease agreement with Maryland's rail system for additional cars to relieve overcrowding. And we are revamping internal processes to get stock back out and rolling again. For the buses, and by the way, I find myself guilty of this, we spend a disproportionate amount of our time talking about rail, but buses are the lifeblood, particularly in our urban communities. So for the buses, NJ Transit will be hiring 40 new drivers, targeting relief on overcrowded specific routes, and taking steps to get more routes, both intra and interstate, back to running on time. We are also all in on getting the Gateway program funded. We are keenly aware of the connection I was concerned you all weren't paying attention. We are also keenly aware of the connection between reliable rail service and our regional economic prospects. Quite frankly, businesses aren't going to invest in areas where their workforce isn't going to be able to make it to work. I remain optimistic that in partnership with the federal government and this administration, we will get Gateway built. We must. You know as I do, there is no infrastructure project in this entire nation as critical to our overall economy and security. And I am committed to working with Governor Cuomo, Senator Schumer, and the entire New York delegation, as well as our entire delegation headed by Senators Menendez and Booker, to get Gateway done. I must also single out on our side of the Hudson Congressman Rodney Frelinghuysen, Chairman of the House Appropriations Committee, who has been so instrumental in getting the initial funding for Gateway passed. I've never been around anything that relates to New York and New Jersey that had so much unanimous bipartisan support. So something must be right about the Gateway project, and we will. It may take longer than we want, but we will succeed. In New Jersey, we are also preparing to take on a leading role in the replacement of the Portal Bridge, that aging linchpin along the Northeast Corridor and the root cause of so many train delays. I hope to have more on these specific steps in the days ahead. But beyond Gateway, our states need the federal government as a true partner in building critical infrastructure connections. In New Jersey, we're doing our part with a multi-billion-dollar annual transportation program at work, creating good jobs and improving our roads and bridges. That's what made putting our Transportation Trust Fund, which had become virtually bankrupt, back on a solid footing so critical. On any given day, over 90,000 New Jersey daily commuters head into New York's Penn Station, and another 85,000 odd ride buses to the Port Authority terminal. And by the way, this is in addition to folks who come in by ferry or car or Amtrak or by other means. And countless others rely on those means. We cannot get this system modernized into where we know it should be quickly enough, and we cannot do it without regional and federal partnerships. But our efforts aren't just to improve the lives of commuters. We're focused on creating economically stronger local communities. We are restoring funding for dormant grant programs that help downtowns revitalize and leverage public dollars with private investment and create new affordable housing opportunities for our residents. We know that access to better housing creates healthier neighborhoods and stronger downtowns, and that in turn will provide more of those residents good, family-supporting jobs. This is an all-inclusive approach to economic development. And rest assured, as we begin to implement our economic development agenda, transit-oriented development will be a focus. And that is one of the reasons why no one is laughing that Newark is one of the finalists for Amazon's HQ2 project. People are seeing what we can offer both financially and intrinsically, and where we are headed. This would be a transformational project for our state, but even more importantly, it would spur investment in people and small businesses across the region. Newark has the people, it has the location, and it has Newark Fiber, the city's own public fiber optic network. And that excitement in Newark is why I have such optimism for the future of other communities, like Patterson, or any other city for that matter in our state, especially when it comes to being homes for leaders in the innovation economy. We're already seeing the roots of the innovation economy taking hold in places like Jersey City and Hoboken and Newark. Last month, I joined leaders from Rutgers University and many of our leading healthcare institutions to promote our vision for the hub in New Brunswick, which we see as a center for cross-industry research and development. Just as Cornell and New York City are doing on Roosevelt Island, we envision the hub as the Applied Sciences Center for New Jersey. And with more than $650 million in research grants and sponsorships in the biomedical and health sciences, and its annually, by the way, and its participation in the Big Ten Cancer Research Consortium, Rutgers New Brunswick is among the top 20 public institutions in the nation. On top of that, we add the city of New Brunswick, home to outstanding healthcare providers and hospitals, including RWJ Barnabas, and the Cancer Institute of New Jersey. Johnson & Johnson, one of the world's largest biopharmaceutical companies, is headquartered there, and many other companies are located within a radius of just a few miles. All of this connected to New York and the world by NJ Transit and the New Jersey Turnpike. We see the hub as the place where the next generation of world-changing, innovative companies will be born. And we also don't see it as the last of its kind in New Jersey, but the first. We are custom-built for the innovation economy. We are renowned for having one of the world's most highly educated workforces. I believe we lead the nation with 39% of our residents holding college degrees. We have the nation's fourth highest percentage of millennials with college degrees. We have the highest concentration of scientists and engineers per square mile of anywhere in the world. For the needs of the innovation economy, we more than cover the spread. And I think you could say with great evidence and great conviction that we were Silicon Valley before there was a Silicon Valley. And I view my job as to reclaim that space. And this is just the beginning. A few weeks ago, I addressed a global business forum for the offshore wind industry. The site for this forum, you can't make this up, Princeton, New Jersey. A year ago, this would have been unthinkable. But we are making a clear case for New Jersey to lead in the production of offshore wind energy. We have set a goal for 3,500 megawatts of offshore wind by the year 2030. Enough to power 1.5 million homes and businesses, and the most aggressive vision in the nation, if not the world. Already, Ørsted, a leading offshore energy company, is opening an office in Atlantic City as a first step toward their own plan for creating, as part of that 3,500 megawatts, a 1,000 megawatt wind farm off our southern coastline. A coastline, by the way, that we recently protected when I signed a bill last week that said we will not now and not ever drill for oil or gas off the shore in New Jersey. The Ørsted project alone will create up to 1,000 new union construction jobs in the short term, and many good-paying permanent ones as well. But we don't view our offshore wind capability, and by the way, we're almost uniquely situated on either American coast for offshore wind. We don't view it as just part of our plan for recapturing our rightful space in innovation. It's part and parcel of our goal of creating a 100% clean energy New Jersey by the year 2050. In terms of jobs and the economy, this is the smart way to go. But given our location as a coastal state and our exposure and vulnerability to climate change, it makes even more sense. It is for us, if you will, existential. Offshore wind also can't be just a New Jersey-only solution. I'm excited by the potential for our region to become a global offshore wind leader. That potential is one of the reasons I have made rejoining the Regional Greenhouse Gas Initiative a top priority that we are fulfilling. New ways to power our economy are a matter of smart policy, and they create a more sustainable future. But we also need to look at clean energy as a means of addressing long-standing issues of environmental justice and personal health. I have visited the communities in our cities where children suffer from asthma rates many times the national or even state average. One of those communities in Newark's South Ward is within sight of the Port of Newark. Increasing our capacity for clean energy means we can electrify more of those operations, protecting and creating jobs we need without creating the air pollution we don't need. That will also make these communities more inviting for outside investment to create new jobs and housing, and it will mean cleaner air blowing across into New York City as well. This is just a small part of our broad vision for growing a fairer and stronger New Jersey. And importantly and excitingly, these are just a few of the many direct lines between our vision and the RPA's vision as laid out in the 4th Regional Plan. Our administration has no interest in doing things the same old way. This is a transformative time for our state. In a way, we're lucky that we started where we did, at the bottom, because it allows us to think outside of the box, to dream big, and to act bold. We're going to get back to the smart planning that New Jersey was once renowned for. We know that our future economy will grow from our cities out, taking full advantage of our transit network, buttressed by thoughtful business incentive programs that invest in whole communities and revitalize downtowns, and all the while being led by our New Jersey values. We know that by doing this, we can make our state a magnet for the innovative companies we need to create good jobs and do our part in securing a strong future, not just for New Jersey, but for our entire region. A Republican friend of mine on the campaign trail tagged me as a pro-growth progressive. I'll take that. It captures me and our mindset very well. To me, it signifies that I know and we know that we can both do good and do well, and that we can create economic opportunity that falls in line with our core values. It captures nicely our guiding principle. Economic progress cannot be made without social progress, and social progress cannot be achieved without economic progress. I feel that I'm probably in the company of many who feel as I do that the naysayers who were writing our obituaries had it all wrong. Instead, this is a story of our rebirth, and I would venture to say that New Jersey is America's #1 turnaround story. We have everything we need. We always have our location, our people, our infrastructure. And because of the RPA, we also have the roadmap to build a stronger future for millions of New Jerseyans and for the millions more across the entire region who share in our economic future and who will share in our success. I thank you all for having me this morning and to being with you, and I look forward to working with you in the years ahead to bring this vision to life. Thank you all.
Where is he? Oh, there's he. Thank you all. Thank you. Thanks, man.
Wow, what a morning program. Thank you, Governor Murphy. Thank you, Andy and Scott. And thank everybody here for being there and really helping us in what we're trying to do. I'll say I see Governor with Kevin Corbett. We're lending him to you, Governor. He can be in your administration, but we're going to want Kevin back afterwards. With that, I'm very pleased to conclude the morning program. We have 4 terrific breakout sessions happening in the rooms around here on growing the middle class in a technology-charged economy, creating more homes with the buildings we have, expanding the region's carbon market, something that the governor's leading on with Reggie, and improving transit options in our suburbs and outer boroughs. In your programs, you'll find the specific rooms for each of these sessions. We have staff and volunteers to help you. And as Andy mentioned, yes, we are running just a little bit behind schedule, so I'll say that we'll have the programs go for an extra 15 minutes. And at 12:30, please come on back here for lunch. We're going to have an extraordinary program. And thank you again for joining us. Good day. Afternoon. We've got a busy schedule, so we're going to kick it off even as you're enjoying your lunch. I'm Tom Wright, President of Regional Plan Association. I see a few people still grabbing their seats. Good afternoon, everybody, and thanks for being here with us. Thank you, Steve. It always works. On behalf of RPA and the Board of Directors, I want to welcome you to the RPA Assembly. Today marks the 28th year that RPA has hosted the Assembly, bringing together government, civic, and business leaders from across the region and country. We could not be more excited to have you all here today with us. To kick off our luncheon program, before our speakers, we've got a very special short video frame about what's at stake if we don't act. So I'd like to cue the video, please. Thank you.
The federal government has always believed in investing in infrastructure, but we want to do it in a way that produces real results.
The city expects to see another 1 million people by 2035, and the region an additional 1 million people.
Our 100-year-old system needs an overhaul.
So how do you take a great city like New York and position it to be successful in the 21st century?
This is a city predominantly of transit users.
The great equalizer is the subway. For a flat fare, any time of the day, any distance traveled, you can get anywhere in New York.
On my desk, I have a cover of Time magazine from September of 1990, and it's the rotting apple. Because of the quality of life and the crime, 60% of the respondents said they would like to live someplace else. It's a reminder to me that what we have, it's fragile.
This is the summer of hell.
The tracks are deteriorating faster than Amtrak can repair them.
Our bridges are crumbling.
Mass transit messes.
We're in a crisis situation. We have a failing grade. Our airports need improvement. Our rail systems do as well.
It's not about just reinvesting in our infrastructure, it's reinventing how we invest in our infrastructure.
The Port Authority bus terminal, also known as the single worst place on planet Earth.
Our transit system is in a crisis.
We must improve the New York City subway system. We have failed to maintain an engineering marvel that was a gift from our forefathers.
It's sort of a story of gross neglect on a pretty wide scale.
New York commuters have to battle rats for the seat, which, for the record, you should only give up if the rat is pregnant.
Extra subway! The subway is unreliable.
It's breaking down. It's not running at all.
This is not just disgraceful and frustrating, it's dangerous.
The governor's proposed a congestion pricing plan to fund the MTA.
We need to look at a solution that is multifaceted. It's about addressing congestion and raising revenue at the same time.
Congestion pricing is the most viable approach to addressing our public transit crisis.
Riders cannot wait another year.
Infrastructure is an investment. And when we don't spend money on infrastructure, it's a tax on the future.
Rebuilding the Gateway Tunnel is the most important infrastructure project in the United States right now.
If there were to be some serious occurrence that would require the shutdown of one of the tunnels, instead of operating 24 trains an hour, you'd operate 6.
You're talking about impairing the commutes of thousands of people every hour that they're out of service.
One day of the Northeast Corridor being down costs about $100 million in productivity. Imagine what it would be like to have those problems for more than a year if we don't invest in the infrastructure.
Unfortunately, the impetus to maybe ultimately get this built is you might need it to fail.
The lack of political urgency in tackling this problem is insane.
We need to redefine the intersection between the public and private sector.
If you're going to get private finance come in to do something, there has to be a sustainable return on that investment.
We're talking about really big numbers here. None of these problems are solvable by ourselves.
You could continue to put up these high rises in New York, but if the transportation network falls down, it won't sustain itself.
We have already passed the fail-safe point. We're going to have problems with the system today before we have a new one in place.
Gateway Tunnel, 100-year-old Long Island Railroad, the state of the subway system. There's only so much we can take before there's a quality of life shock.
It's time we kept the public interest in mind by investing in public transit.
We have the toolkit, the knowledge, and the experience.
Major infrastructure projects, they can happen and we can do it, and we need to prove that to ourselves.
So there we are. Thank you. I I think that's a good summary of the challenges that we face and many of the allies that we have in this. I just have to say, standing up here today, the energy in this room is incredible. This is the best turnout ever for an RPA assembly, and we're so grateful to all of the people who helped make this a not-to-miss event, including a few of the folks who you'll hear from in the next few minutes. We are very excited to have so many big thinkers and distinguished leaders with us here today. This is usually where I would do a roll call of all of them, but literally the entire table of 40 people in front of me is a who's who of elected and public officials from the tri-state region across the bounds of planning, infrastructure, and others. So why don't we give a shout out to all of the elected officials who've joined us this morning. Thank you so much. We're really honored to have you all with us. Thank you also to our terrific speakers and panelists this morning and in the afternoon panels. They really help us really dive into these issues and try and solve the problems that we're talking about. I want to add on a personal level a huge thank you and shout out to the staff of RPA, who are the most extraordinary people. Please, they've been working for months to put this event together. They work every single day to move the ideas from the fourth plan into action. Could I ask all of the RPA staff in the room to stand up, please, and just be noticed? Can I ask them, folks? They're all probably at the side of the room. One person in particular I'm looking for who is running around with a headset on is Christine Shu. Where's Christine? Is she in the room or has she run out? Do we see her? Christine is the key person who puts this together each year, and we love her for it. This is going to be her last assembly, I'm sad to say. But Christine, we all wish you the best of luck and really Godspeed on everything you do. Thank you. I also want to take this opportunity to recognize the RPA Board of Directors. We're deeply grateful for your support and your hard work on behalf of the entire metropolitan region. Scott Breckler, our chairman, talked some about the dedicated folks on the board this morning, and I couldn't agree more with what he said. I'd like to ask all of the RPA board members in the room to please stand up for a moment and be recognized by you. Please, RPA. This is a dedicated, knowledgeable, talented group of people, so thank you so, so much. And I really want to thank all of our funders and supporters without whom none of this would have been possible. In particular, I want to thank the Durst Organization, the General Contractors Association, Hudson Yards, Oxford Related, SL Green, Two Trees, and of course RXR for being our platinum sponsors this year, and also to Tonio Burgos and Associates for very graciously sponsoring our speakers and sponsors reception yesterday. Thank you, all of you, but really to all of our sponsors and contributors, everybody who kicked in for this. Your support for RPA is an investment in the future of our city and region, and the people who live and work here now, and the people who will in the future. You've participated in preparing the fourth regional plan by sharing your greatest concerns and your best ideas. You gave us working sessions, forums like the Milstein Forum, which we did with the Milstein Foundation, which engaged stakeholders and civic leaders and identified the critical issues and recommendations that we're now driving forward. So thank you all to everybody in this room. Thanks so much. 96 years ago, a group of civic and business leaders had an audacious idea to plan for the future of the tri-state metropolitan region around New York City. In 1922, New York City itself was a new form of metropolitan government, and the city was growing fast. In just 25 years, we had built over 500 miles of subways, 10 bridges, and 11 tunnels spanning the East Hudson and Harlem rivers. We'd grown in population from 3.4 to 5.6 million people. But this rapid growth also brought new challenges for us. The Lower East Side of Manhattan, with a population density of almost 500,000 people per square mile, became the most crowded community in the history of our species. And it was a breeding ground for cholera, influenza, and other infectious diseases. The new technology, the automobile, was opening up vast new areas for development and activity, but it was also causing more traffic and increasing fatalities. Industries which had brought us new prosperity were also polluting our air and water. Just as today, there was no public agency at the federal, regional, or state level that was thinking about the future of the entire metropolitan region and its economic, social, and environmental well-being. The first regional plan of 1929 identified where highways, subways, and commuter rail lines should be built. We promoted new opportunities for workforce housing and identified regional landscapes, from the majestic Palisades to the beaches of Long Island, that should be permanently protected. We proposed new locations for our seaport and airports, and we designed parks and civic structures that would endure. Nearly 100 years later, we continue to provide that long-term vision. Of course, now we do it in partnership with many of you and hundreds of civic, policy, and community-based organizations that promote transit, housing, public health, environmental stewardship in the communities around the region. But RPA continues to be unique in its ability to think about these issues across the silos of the issues, over political boundaries, and beyond political timeframes. Our ideas still carry no weight of law, but they have been extremely influential in the past, and working with the people like all of you here in the room today, they will be again in the future. I want to encourage you all to check out the Fourth Regional Plan, fourthplan.org, to see what we're recommending and help us as we start to reform public institutions so that they have the funding, the capacity, and the independence to deliver the investments that we need, so that we can modernize our transportation system, including commuter rail, subways, and buses, but also by expanding our airports and redesigning our streets so that we can accommodate more bikes and pedestrians. We need to rise to the challenge of sea level, of climate change, by adapting our coastline, creating a greener energy system, and improving the natural and built environments. And we need to make the region affordable for everyone by providing 1 million new housing units. That's 1 million above what we're already producing, including redevelopment around transit hubs and changing the planning and zoning codes to create healthier, more diverse, and walkable communities. We all have an enormous stake in these efforts, and we thank you for being here today and for your support in the weeks, months, years, maybe even decades to come. To talk more about what needs to happen and what we are going to do to get there, I am pleased to introduce for the second time today RPA's Chairman, Scott Reckler. Since taking the reins at RPA, Scott has overseen the completion of the Fourth Regional Plan and also put us in the middle of some of the most important challenges of our times. How are we going to fix the New York City subway system? Where are people going to live? And how do we reform the public agencies that need to deliver these services? Scott brings his deep experience from the public and private sectors to these efforts. As the CEO of a major real estate company, he understands what it takes to build a business and to create balanced communities. As a public servant, he understands the constraints that elected and appointed officials work under. And as a civic leader, he knows that the only way to get things done is by collaborating. So please join me in welcoming RPA's Chairman, Scott Reckler. Thanks.
Thank you, Tom. And again, I want to reiterate what I said this morning about your leadership and the team at the RPA. It's tremendous work that you do day in and day out. And events like this and the Fourth Regional Plan wouldn't be possible without the efforts that you make on behalf of the organization. So thank you for what you do. It's been a great morning here at the RPA for those who participated. And I think Tom said it, one of the most exciting and engaging mornings that we've had. I'd like to just, as I think through the morning, I was trying in my head think about it. We had Andy Byford. Andy is a burst of energy. I called him a rock star. I think I understated it. When I think about New York, I talk often about New York being a magnet for talent. Well, that's a talent we want to try to attract to New York, is people like Andy Byford. So, Andy, thank you for being here. David. Also, I'd like we had Phil Murphy here, and it was refreshing as Phil Murphy was talking about, the importance of balancing economic growth and social responsibility and progressiveness, and how you can actually do that. And now that's a win-win model for the long term. So from a guy from New Jersey, offered us some very good advice. When I was walking actually downstairs, though, with Governor Murphy, he saw that I was still wearing my mic, and he said, so you must be from New Jersey. And so no one gets it. Okay, there we go. And I just also, I don't know if Rick Cotton's still here, but Rick was here this morning, who, as everyone knows, Executive Director of the Port Authority, where I had served at sometimes, doing a great job at the port. I saw Rick as he was walking in. He went to a table that wasn't his. They were moving him away. I was concerned he was going to pull out his Port Authority badge to try to change the dynamic, but he didn't, and so we made it. It was all right on that frontier. So, you know, actually, I just, David, we can just turn this thing a little bit here. It's off the wrong way. So, as many of you know, I call my home New York my entire life. In my 25 years of public service, the other way, Seth. This is my first time using one of these things, and they got it today. I can't see it. Keep going a little bit more. Perfect. There we go. There. Thank you. So in my 25 years in public and private sectors, I've always in the tri-state region, whether it's New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, and what you see is each has its own priority, each has its own stakeholders, each has its own distinct personalities, but they also all share a common needs of imperatives. And these days are for more than, they moved this on me again. These days, and now you're right, Larry, these days and for more than a century, there's only been one organization that thinks about the entire region holistically. And that region, of course, that organization, of course, is the RPA. And what makes the RPA so valuable is able to think over the long term. It's unconstrained by 2- and 4-year election cycles and parochial and political influences that others might need to think about. It's hard to overstate how critical the RPA's work is, especially in the current environment. Too many levels of government, especially our federal government, are gridlocked and dysfunctional, and in some cases, divisive. We have a political process that is increasingly driven not by facts, but by ideology. Political tribalism, not pragmatism, is taking priority over sound, reasoned decision-making. Yet, our global, technologically driven economy isn't slowing down. In fact, it is accelerating, and with it, we need to adapt more quickly than ever before. Just look at how changes in technology are disrupting what we once considered stable industries and sustainable models. Take, for example, yellow cabs. 5 years ago, you could buy a license or a medallion for a New York City cab for $1 million. Today, they're trading for $250 or less. Or look at Airbnb, barely a decade old, and now offers more rooms than the world's largest hotel chain without even having to hammer one single nail or lay one single brick. And then there are the changes that are likely to come in short order to the agents of change themselves. For example, Uber and Lyft, who have exploded over the past years, creating thousands of new jobs for drivers in the region. In the coming years, though, many of these jobs will most likely disappear, along with the jobs of hundreds of thousands of others across the country, thanks to the advances in automated vehicles, artificial intelligence, and robotics. In fact, some studies project that by 2030, a third of American jobs could be fully automated, including 1 in 10 in New York City alone. Just to be clear, there's much good that comes with the innovation driving this displacement. However, the displacement is real, and with progress comes pain that cannot be ignored. So while we all may pay rapt attention to the latest tweets emanating from 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, the problems we face aren't as short-lived as this morning's news, much less simply diagnosed and addressed in 140 characters. That is why the RPA's 4th Regional Plan, with its sophisticated analysis and its ability to generate comprehensive solutions, is so essential in today's day and age. And that's why this year, just as we do every year, we intend to take on some of the most complicated, difficult to solve challenges that our region faces. Not surprisingly, these include challenges relating to our transportation system, a challenge that not only threaten the vitality and viability of our economy, but impact the quality of life of every person in the region. Determining whether a father can get home to put their daughter to bed or pick their child up from daycare, or whether a business person can squeeze in 3 rather than 4 or 5 meetings during the day, or whether an elderly person can make it to their doctor's appointment on time. You know, these are things that when we talk about infrastructure, these are the real-life impact about infrastructure. And we spoke a lot this morning about it. We spoke about the concepts of what's happening with our subway system, with the Gateway Tunnel, with our bus system, with New Jersey Transit. We covered a lot of these different items. So this afternoon, I wanted to talk about a different challenge that we're facing as a region. Specifically, I want to discuss the challenge posed by the increasing unaffordability of living in our region, especially in New York City. Consider just one compelling statistic. Today, over 1 million New York City households pay more than 30% of their income for housing. Clearly an unaffordable level, clearly an unsustainable circumstance. For this reason, we at the RPA have supported elected officials throughout the region who have launched efforts to retain and build more affordable housing, including Mayor de Blasio, who recently increased the goal of his landmark housing program to some 300,000 affordable units that are either retained or created. But however as ambitious such initiatives are, it's important for us to acknowledge that they will never be sufficient. After all, they are neither intended to, nor do they actually solve the root cause of our affordability crisis. This is because fundamentally, our problem is not that we don't have enough rent-regulated units, it's that we don't have enough units, period. In other words, our problem at its core is that our housing supply has failed to continue to keep pace with our ever-expanding population. Thus, the only way for us really to solve this problem is through a more appropriately situated development. This means accepting more density, particularly in areas that are well served by public transportation, both in New York City and in our suburbs that surround us. And as uncomfortable as this truth might be to many of our elected officials and many of the public at large, the bottom line is that one cannot be both pro-affordability and anti-development. You can't be pro-affordability and anti-development. The two positions simply cannot be reconciled. For this reason, we at the RPA this year will continue to advocate not just for more and better designed affordable housing programs across the region, but for policies that encourage smart, transit-oriented development in as many communities as possible in the region. This brings me to my second reason that our affordable housing programs across the region are insufficient. Namely, that we do not address the segment of our population that too many of us have ignored for far too long. I speak, of course, of the residents of the New York City Housing Authority, NYCHA, some 40,000 of our fellow New Yorkers, including some of the most vulnerable. Today, the capital and maintenance backlog of NYCHA's development is incomprehensibly more than $20 billion. They're dealing with infestation, mold, lack of heating in the winter. All of these are all too common for residents in these developments. It's no exaggeration to say that the crisis facing NYCHA is no less serious than that facing the subway system, as we talked about this morning. Yet while the pleas of the riding public for action are amplified by the media, and at last are being heeded by our elected officials, the pleas of the residents of NYCHA development have been brushed aside or even ignored. And just to be clear, this has been going on for many, many years, and in the terms of many administrations in City Hall, in Albany, and in Washington. This is unacceptable. This is a breach of our trust, This, in short, is a colossal moral failure by all of us. And when I say by all of us, I say myself included, myself and the RPA. There is if you go through and look at our fourth annual report, our fourth regional plan, we were in a situation where we have an enormous plan, 60 different recommendations, 400 pages, and talking about some of the most pressing problems in our region, and we dedicated two paragraphs, only two paragraphs to NYCHA. So that's clearly a miss on our part. And for me, I want to call the mea culpa, and I want to say I'm sorry as chairman of RPA and on behalf of RPA, because these are voices that need to be heard and voices and issues that we need to deal with just like every other voice in this region. Second, ultimately, though, recognizing shortcomings should not be about assigning blame. It should be viewed as an opportunity to do better going forward. Today, therefore, gives us a chance to seize that opportunity. And when it comes to seizing the opportunity to do more for NYCHA and its residents, though I'm sure our federal government will still be MIA on this issue, the issue is garnering increasing attention and resources in both the city and the state, which is a big positive. Going forward, it's incumbent on all of us and all of our leaders of all levels of government to maintain this attention and to work together towards a better tomorrow for NYCHA and the residents without letting politics and other obstacles get in the way. As for us at the RPA, we also plan to seize this opportunity. In our case, we plan to do what we do best. And so this coming year, I spoke to Tom Wright, and we are going to ask the RPA board to approve an ambitious approve an ambitious analysis of the problems plaguing NYCHA, which will include an actionable blueprint for addressing these problems in a real and meaningful way. Our goal is to issue our findings within the next 6 months. Our proposal is to pull together a team from the RPA to be overseen by our board member and colleague, Seth Pinsky, who oversaw the creation of Mayor Mike Bloomberg's $20 billion resiliency plan for New York City after Hurricane Sandy. Our goal is to bring our efforts a similar level of rigor and a similar sense of urgency that characterize the city's post-Sandy response. And Seth, I appreciate you taking this, volunteering for this great assignment. As our team advances its effort, it will undertake significant outreach, calling upon the knowledge, insights, and experience of experts in the field, civic organizations, government officials, and most importantly, the residents of NYCHA themselves. Our expectation is that when completed, the plan will not only be about getting more money into the NYCHA system, which is clearly needed, but it will also be about reforming the way the bureaucracy functions. This will free the many dedicated men and women who work for NYCHA who are right now the red tape and rules inhibit their ability to be successful, and ensure that the public resources will ultimately be entrusted in an efficient and effective manner. This is exactly the approach of the types of methodologies that we've taken when we've looked at things like the MTA. These agencies have these bureaucracies, these regulations, and we need to go and deal with it head on so they can operate efficiently and effectively. Our plan is also to establish a $1 million budget to make sure we can be appropriately thoughtful and complete in our work. And we look forward to reporting back to you with our progress in the next 6 months. So thank you on that. So clearly, we have a lot of work ahead of us, but I am an optimist by nature. And so while I recognize that dysfunction and gridlock are the norm in the nation's capital, I also see here in our region, we still have some officials at the state and municipal level who are figuring out how to get things done on behalf of their constituents. But as optimistic as I am also clear-eyed. And being clear-eyed is impossible not to acknowledge that in many ways, the 20th century institutions on which we have traditionally relied help us navigate through great upheaval, from NYCHA to the MTA to the Port Authority and to many others, are ill-prepared for the set of 21st century challenges that we now face. Given this, now more than ever, we need leadership from each and every one of us. After all, as the late Justice Brandeis once said, the most important political office is that of private citizen. But this is only half the solution. We also need those institutions that many of us work for that have not succumbed to the dysfunction to take the bull by the horn and to rise to the occasion. I am pleased to say that is exactly what the RPA intends to focus on in the coming year, working in partnership with our civic organizations, leaders in government, the private sector, and everyone sitting in this room today. I truly believe that as daunting as our challenges are, none is so large to be without a solution if the best minds devote time and energy to understanding and addressing them. It's important to remember that our efforts are in fact producing results. Just yesterday, as we talked about this morning, Governor Cuomo announced support for having New York State join New Jersey and Connecticut in banning housing discrimination based on source of income, which is one of the RPA's recommendations in the fourth plan. In America today, big ideas may seem like a thing of the past, but that's not how the RPA views things. We are an institution that has never been afraid to dream at scale. This remains true today and will remain true in the years to come. For this reason, I am confident that our region will not only continue to dream big dreams, but will also, as the 21st century unfolds, provide an example to the rest of the nation of how those big dreams can become a reality for all of us in the days and the years ahead. Thank you. Thank you. It is now my pleasure to bring to the stage Howard Milstein, who will be presenting this year's recipient of the John Zuccotti Award for Leadership. John was a great friend to so many of us in this room, obviously a great friend to Howard and myself. And with no further ado, my dear friend, Howard Milstein. Maybe a little further ado.
Thank you, Scott. I'm pleased to be with you today to present the second annual John Zuccotti Award for Leadership. My treasured friend, mentor, and colleague continues to inspire us all, and I'm proud to honor his legacy again with this award. We're especially pleased to have our dear friend Susan Zuccotti with us at table 26. Winston Churchill once commented on the built environment, "There is no doubt whatever about the influence of architecture and structure upon human character and action. We make our buildings, and afterwards they make us. They regulate the course of our lives." John Zuccotti knew that. He was a builder of relationships, friendships, businesses, foundations, and a builder of cities. John was a lifelong New Yorker and iconic champion of the good, public servant, lawyer, business leader, civic advocate, and philanthropist. So many of you in the room today remember all of his excellent qualities. John's career in public service began during the Lindsay administration, and he is especially remembered as a hero and central figure who pulled the city back from the brink during the fiscal crisis of the 70s. John moved to the private sector and was a founding member of the law firm Tufo, Johnston & Zuccotti, and subsequently assumed leadership posts at Olympia in York, Weill Gottrell, and Brookfield Properties. Throughout his career, John was a key leader in the growth and development of the region. As chairman of the Real Estate Board of New York and as exemplified by his distinguished tenure with the Regional Plan Association. He guided the RPA's work in adding PATH train access to Newark Airport, promoting development and public sector improvements around gateway communities, and perhaps most importantly, investing in Trans-Hudson connections. He ultimately joined the board and the executive committee of the RPA in 2010. Today I'm proud to present the award that bears John's name to another outstanding builder, leader, advocate, and public servant, Tony Kosha. Tony's career in public service spans 3 decades. We'll be hearing from Tony in a minute. Like John, Tony is a quiet diplomat in a frequently political world. He's a long-term planner, a visionary, and ambitious leader, as well as a practical thinker. He knows a thriving metro New York area will strengthen our community by bringing economic vibrancy. That, in turn, will enhance our competitive standing, and like John, Tony brings courage, integrity, and wisdom to each post he has held, and an unwavering commitment to ensure taxpayer dollars are used wisely. Currently, Tony chairs the board of Amtrak and is a partner at Wendell's Marks Lane in Mittendorf. Before that, he chaired the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey and the New Jersey Economic Development Authority. Tony has been a major force in nearly every infrastructure project in our region, from the rebuilding of the World Trade Center to his steadfast efforts to build a new rail tunnel under the Hudson River. As you are all aware, the Gateway project has reached a critical juncture. The economic future of the entire Northeast Corridor depends on this project. Never has Tony's vision, quiet forcefulness, and optimism been more essential. One colleague said of Tony, "He's unbelievable. He's always been unbelievable. He's what we all would like to grow up to be." I had a chance to see these qualities firsthand through the RPA forums on infrastructure, a series of meetings sponsored by the RPA and our Family Foundation. With a career that spans both the public and private sectors, he brought unique expertise to our deliberations and was a key contributor. The forums were tasked with producing a fresh thinking about the region's infrastructure with a laser focus on our transportation network and the urgent need to maintain New York as a leading global city. John Zuccotti, one of our founding vice chairs, didn't live to see the work of the forums come to fruition. But our co-vice chairs, Governor Ed Rendell and Senator Joe Lieberman, helped convene more than 40 distinguished business and civic leaders, along with domain experts. All shared a strong belief combining the public and private sectors can be a model for driving renewal of the nation's infrastructure. Recommendations that emerged from the forums are a key part of RPA's 4th regional plan. Many of these reflect Tony's leadership and ideas. They advocate for dramatic increases in federal and state and local spending on infrastructure projects, a redesign of New York's Penn Station, ideas to reform governance models of key institutions, modernization of work rules, creations of new and innovative partnerships between the public and private sectors, ensuring adequate funding for maintenance and upgrades to prolong the life of our investments and assure international competitiveness. Above all, the top priority is moving forward with the Gateway project, which will transform the region, improve quality of life for commuters, bring jobs to the area, and support economic growth. It's very fitting that Tony Kosha receive the 2018 John Zuccotti Award. This award is the highest honor bestowed by RPA for leaders who make extraordinary contributions and a real difference in our region. Tony's achievements build upon John's legacy as a giant of planning and public service. The work of John, Tony, and the RPA is about transformation and modernization for the next 100 years. Let's raise a glass to this important work, and as John would say, Cent'anni to our work. Tony, please come to the podium, and Scott and Tom, please join me in presenting the John Zuccotti Award to Tony Kosha.
It's a map of the railroad system of the region from the 1929 regional plan. We thought, Tony, that that was very appropriate for you. Congratulations.
Thank you, Howard, Scott, Tom. Very, very nice of you. Howard mentioned that much of that map is still in place, unfortunately. So I have to say, this is not really what I expected when Howard called and gave me the great news, and it is such an honor. John Zuccotti is someone who I'm honored just to be in the same sentence as John, and I'll talk more about that in a second. But when he called me, to be honest with you, I was thinking a little bit more roast than something like this. You know, something where people take turns coming up and talking about their view of Penn Station. But when I got here this afternoon and I didn't see Governor Cuomo, I realized that that probably was not going to happen. The other thing that sort of struck me was the notion that this is a Lifetime Achievement Award, which sort of seems to indicate you're about to retire. My wife, Alice, and my daughter, Elizabeth, who are here with us today, are probably surprised to hear that, or frightened by the notion, one of the two. But then I realized that last year was the first year that this award was given, and they gave it to Vice President Joe Biden, who I assure you has no interest in retiring at all. And there are lots of folks from here to Washington who are seriously watching his movements. Let me start by sort of talking a bit about RPA in the sense that, and you've heard this from those who have spoken already, we have so much benefit that comes to us by having an entity like RPA that has the ability to be visionary, to sort of look forward, to inspire us to do the kind of things that we probably would have some difficulty doing if it wasn't for somebody pushing that outer side of the envelope. I have to tell you that in my career at Amtrak, at the Port Authority, before that at EDA, on many, many occasions, I relied on the RPA to be that kind